rain. And I thought, oh, why did I do that? I actually had to wait longer to get it.
Good morning, everybody.
Because it was going faster.
I'd like to declare C22/4 open and welcome councillors and staff to our meeting, and all those who may be watching, as just reminding you that this meeting is being live streamed, so there may well be people watching or listening. I should remind you to, if you could use your microphones when you're speaking and turn them off when you're not. And so perhaps could we start with you, Councillor Murray-Benge, and ask you to turn yours off? Fantastic. Sorry to pick on you like that. We have an apology from Mayor Webber. I guess we have an apology from Councillor Daly for lateness. Do we have any? Moved Councillor Thwaites and Councillor Granger, seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We have no late items. Are there any declarations of interest? No conflicts of interest? Seems not. Public excluded items are nil. There is no one, I believe, to speak in public forum and no presentation. So we can now move into the business of the meeting. The first matter up is the community board minutes for receipt. And you will note on your agenda that it starts at 8.2, which is, it left out for some reason 8.1, which is the minutes of the Katikati Community Board meeting. So if you could note that these community board meetings that we're asking you to approve do indeed include the Katikati Community Board one. So do we have a mover there for that? Denya and Sol. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So then we go to minutes 9.1, which is the minutes of the Performance and Monitoring Committee. Moved Granger, seconded Thwaites. All in favour? Against? Carried. Minutes of the Annual Plan and Long-Term Plan Committee meeting, 5th of May. Moved Dean, seconded Denya. All in favour? Against? Carried. Minutes of the council meeting held on the 12th of May. Moved Henry and seconded Murray-Benge. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Minutes of the Policy Committee meeting, 26th of May. Do we have a mover there? Councillor Granger and Councillor Sol. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, 2nd of June. Moved Councillor Denya, seconded Councillor Daly. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Minutes of the District Plan Committee meeting held on the 9th of June. Moved Scrimger, seconded Murray-Benge. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.7, minutes of the Annual Plan Long-Term Plan Committee meeting, 9th of June. Moved Dean, seconded Daly. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 9.8, minutes of the Policy Committee meeting, 14th of June. Moved Gray, seconded Murray-Benge. All those in favour? Please say against? Carried. We're now down to 10.1, minutes for receipt, and 10.2. Can we do them together?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, minutes for receipt there from the Murray Forum meetings. Moved Sol, seconded Thwaites. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. All right. Moving on down, item 11.1, appointment of independent subject matter expert for the Audit and Risk Committee. Are there any questions in relation to this first? Councillor Denia. Denia Dean.
Mr. Chairman, I read the CV for this appointee, and I cannot see anywhere in it what his qualifications actually are. It has got a really good work history, but I didn't see what his qualifications were.
Could we ask David to speak to that, please?
I'm aware that Mr. Henderson does hold tertiary qualifications. He has had extensive board training. He has extensive, as you'll see, employment history with banks domestically and internationally, with 20 years of PwC, with various. I'm sure that any questions around his qualifications can be answered from Mr. Henderson himself if you forward questions to him. But I can assure you that the panel have looked into his and deemed him to be suitably qualified.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy with that.
Did you have anything to add, James?
I do believe Mr. Henderson was a former chartered accountant, but obviously as he's progressed out of practicing, when he left PricewaterhouseCoopers, he has let those initials obviously subside.
Okay, are there any other questions? Seems not. Do we have someone ready to move that appointment? Moved Councillor Denia, seconded Councillor Granger. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. All right, 11.2. Proposal to lease for the Pongakawa Heritage House and to reclassify part of the Pongakawa Domain Recreation Reserve to Local Purpose Reserve. I see Councillor Marsh, you have your hand up there. Would you like to, or did you have a question or did you want to speak to this? Sorry, we can't hear you, Kevin. We can see you talking.
Better? You better?
Yep, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is the right thing to do. These girls have gone into this thoroughly, and to move that is something that's wanted by these particular ladies on this committee. And when it's moved, the tennis courts will go into exactly the same place as the building is at the moment. So yeah, I'd move that be accepted.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gray.
I just had a point of clarification for staff to just make sure that the area that has been put forward to be reclassified is future-proofed enough. Do we have enough space for what the endeavours are projecting?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that's been done in consultation with the group that we've asked them to identify what those future community needs would be. And so we've been followed and I guess acting for the community and realising that outcome that they're seeking. So I think it does future-proof it.
Happy to second.
Okay, so it's been moved, Councillor Marsh, seconded Councillor Gray. Councillor Murray-Benz, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
It's really quite exciting to see a community group stepping up and our staff working with them. And I think this is the beginning of a very successful program. Happy to support it.
Thank you. No one else? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Next item 11.3, approval to carry over.
Mr. Chair, sorry, point 4 is grants or does not grant. Do we need to agree to that? Or?
Yeah, we have to work out which one we're going to run with. And so I was going to ask, Mr. Ellis, did you wish to speak to that? I believe it was your recommendation, or do you want to provide an explanation?
I think Peter's processed it so he can speak to it.
Oh, okay, all right. Mr. Watson, could you give the explanation in regard to the facilities in the community fund? I mean, it does It talked in the paper about it's been rolled over twice already.
No, you haven't.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Oh, sorry, I'm,
Beg your pardon, that's grants, does
Hence the confused look on my face. there.
oh, yeah, yeah,
What we're doing
yeah,
with that
sorry. The motion was definitely to grant it.
grant.
Sorry. I'm absolutely sure that's what councillor Marsh was moving. Yeah. Yeah, all right. I'm sorry, I'm just working off the list run sheet rather than the detailed agenda. There's too many pages for me.
Right,
So my apologies. So we are indeed back to, finally, to the facilities and the community fund. Mr. Watson, did you have a comment to make at all?
Yeah, I
terms of
guess the
explanation?
the comment is, we did review the facilities and facilities and community fund last year at a workshop, and we talked about whether we would do these carry forwards, but you said that you'd wish to remain carrying on with the same process. So it's been approved once in the past by the CEO, as per your policy, and we brought it back now. I think this is the second or third time to council. I guess one of the issues there is that when we get our money allocated and it's 3 or 4 years between it's getting delivery, other people are missing out. But don't forget, a lot of our funds also then went off to the resilience fund when the COVID set in, so that kind of cleaned that out a little bit as well. So we have a working party coming up on the 13th of July, where this group has now applied for a further $6,000 to meet those health and safety needs and other requirements that DOC have imposed upon them. And I think from my perspective, as a recreation outcome for the community, I think it's still a worthwhile investment from council, because it's leveraging other funds as well. So that's, as I support, I guess, being approved so we can get forward with this group, because they're now in a position, they say, to deliver.
Thank you. Councillor Denia.
A question, if I may. What assurance do we have that the permission in writing from DOC will be forthcoming? It's been a long process, and I know from personal experience that these things could take a lot longer than you think, and that whole area for the Department of Conservation is in flux at the moment. The BOP Conservation Management Strategy, which they went out of consultation in 2021, was put on hold indefinitely. There's the Conservation Management Processes Bill out for consultation, which submission is closed tomorrow. And I just have some concern whether this permission will be granted anytime soon.
Okay, thank you. If I could go to, sorry, did you want to respond to the question around?
It's a difficult one to
Go
answer.
on.
I have spoken recently to Jeff Millam, the manager, and he said, in his view, it's not far off. And so now, so the person we got starting on the 25th of July to replace Wayne Orchorn is actually from the Department of Conservation, and is the person who does all their concessions and agreements. So we have a lot of insight as of the 25th of July.
Councillor Henry.
I just want clarification, just based on something that you just said then, Peter, that others may miss out. I was under the impression that this was 10,000 that was given or agreed on at 2019, and it carried over. Am I incorrect on that? That 10,000 was held there for them? It's not affecting any other applicants that may be trying to vie for these funds?
Yeah, not at this point in time. I've just need to seek some further advice from finance behind the scenes, because I'm not sure whether the 10,000 got consumed in the resilience fund distribution. But
In the next round, it must have done.
yeah, but
You think-
either way, it'll be funded from the funding source, which is at 2% of the previous year's FinCos.
You're not sure on that yet?
Not yet.
Councillor Thwaites.
I'm happy to move recommendations 1, 2 and 3 on page 154. I believe speaking to it, that the circumstances of the last couple of years have been quite extraordinary given the COVID delays and the difficulty coordinating things. So I'd support a community group to that extent.
Yep,
So
thank
move that.
you. You're seconding Councillor Granger. Anybody wish to speak to it? Councillor Henry.
I'd just like to say that, yes, COVID-19 and 20, all our lockdowns has caused some problems, but to set a precedent like this, I wouldn't like to see it happening. In that, yes, they had the 10,000 in that time, but another group had missed out because they got that grant. And now they're coming into a new round and they're taking that 10,000 opportunity again. So I wouldn't like to see it set as a precedent to do that sort of carrying over.
Okay, thank you. Seems there are no other speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. All right, 11.4, the proposal to join the collaborative Waikato Council controlled organisation. Just wait for James to get himself seated there.
Morning, councillors. Hopefully the report's reasonably self-explanatory. I'm looking today for approval from council to purchase an 8.3% holding in CoLab Waikato, which is a controlled organisation. I'll take the report as read, just talking to maybe a few points in there. And first one, of course, is as you're aware, we're a member of BOPLAS. BOPLAS's primary focus is on shared procurement and shared services. What we do through BOPLAS does save council considerable sum of money in terms of shared scaled negotiations. And they obviously facilitate some of our more bigger contracts around insurances and things like that that are time consuming and adds considerable value to council. CoLab Waikato, which is the Waikato equivalent of BOPLAS in name. CoLab Waikato, part of the reason why we would like to join and how it would benefit council is they are quite progressed in terms of strategic initiatives around shared services across their councils. By joining that, it gives us a strategic seat around the table to help influence and shape the delivery of future shared service initiatives. You'll see I've pasted a link in this report into their website, and you'll see they have a number of shared service projects already in place and operating across the relevant councils. So that provides us a vehicle already to go in and do shared services, as opposed to having to set one up, work with the councils around governance, operational delivery, all that kind of stuff that takes significant time, money and effort. The other thing for us as well is with the potential Three Waters transition, our partners in entity B will be Waikato, a lot of those Waikato councils, well, all of them. So it gives us a great opportunity to build strategic relationships with those councils. And we've actually had CoLab in to present to the leadership team where they have indicated that they are already engaging with the National Transition Unit, and they have big plans around how they help to shape, if it goes ahead, how the councils work together and how we deliver shared services through that and how they advise entity 2. So those are the key points really around this paper. So I'll just take any questions unless our CEO has anything else to add.
Seems not. Councillor Zenia.
Yeah, thank you. Can I clarify the potential costs here? So I understand there's $1,000 for the share purchase, $47,000 annually as a share of the annual overheads, and the $21,000 for the Opportunity Development Fund. Is that an annual cost as well, or is that a one-off?
That's correct. So that $21,000 is an annual cost, and that actually enables the management team at CoLab that already formed to actually deliver some projects on behalf of the councils. The other piece is an actual annual fee to cover the running, the bigger piece of the council, no different from what we currently do with BOPLAS.
So the $21,000 is a one-off?
No, it's an annual recurring fee paid into the Opportunity Development Fund.
Right, thank you.
So that the total amount would be 40 plus the 21.
Okay,
yeah.
And it just seems slightly higher than BOPLAS, which has total contributions of 300,000 over 9 councils, and this is a bit higher. So let's you explain.
I think it is. I think the outcomes will pay for themselves. We're talking about a procurement model versus a as James said, it is a very strategically focused. And when you look at the costs of some of the projects that we've got on our books for the next 3 or 4 years, ERP, HRIS, you will appreciate how much cost goes into the initial discovery stages of those projects. And those are exactly the sorts of things that this group will do.
Councillor Granger.
Yes, can anybody give us any more facts or background on why Taupo didn't think it was a good idea to be part of this organisation?
I think they'd basically done their dash in terms of what value they were getting out of Waikato Lass. They have progressed a lot of their own growth in terms of their systems. So it was a pure value benefit decision for them.
We could perhaps a supplementary to that, if I could chip in there. If they've seen the value, what are the issues or areas that we would see value that we can pick up that they can't, or they're not able to make use of at this point?
Oh, it's a good question, and both questions got. And I have spoken directly to the CE of Taupo about this before we made the recommendation. I just say it's a different stage of maturity in terms of organisation and systems and where they're up to. We're looking, or maybe the particular projects that are getting run by Waikato Lass at the moment are of more interest or benefit to us. So they are doing a lot of the stuff around the systems, as I say, that we've identified are interesting to us over the next 3 to 5 years. They're also doing particularly a lot of work around professional development for their staff, which we want to leverage off as well. So I think it's actually, some of that just comes to organisational maturity or choice of where you're actually focusing at the moment, what your priorities are as you go forward. So yeah, we see it, we have a different view on that. But we have asked, I've spoken with, as I say, with the CE there to understand that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murray-Benge.
Mr. James, we don't know that the Three Waters proposal by the present government will survive. The 600 odd people who were at the meeting the other night and hearing National and ACT both saying it's not going to go ahead and they will repeal it. What will be the advantages of belonging to this group if that is the case?
I think I'll answer that. I think regardless of whether it does go ahead or not, there's still significant preparation that needs to be done. And we've spoken previously about, as we're doing our transition planning, we need to do it because it'll be too late to do the planning once National get in if they do overturn it. So with all of our planning, we are looking at how you back out if the decision gets changed, but there is still a significant amount of planning that needs to happen. So that collective effort will be of benefit to us.
My question really is, what is it that we can ask of the government, whichever government it may be, to actually link in with us to support and actually get us on track for making sure that our Three Waters are as best that they can be? We know, sir, Mr. James, before you came in Makatu, we could not afford to put in a sewage scheme there. And Internal Affairs had significant funding and we got a multi-million-dollar grant, which enabled us to give an affordable system into Makatu. Now, that is the sort of thing that we're looking for, a relationship with central government. Do you think that this Waikato group has got the skills to actually help with that?
I think
Because local government association certainly doesn't. Sorry.
I'll go to the chief executive to answer that or address that.
It's not in the scope of their work is not to influence central government, is to prepare for change.
And change comes in all sorts of forms, not just Three Waters. So, yeah.
I think just to add to that, just to what the CEO said, is this is a better option for us than Botlas in terms of preparing for any change around future operating models. That's not what Botlas currently is doing. So I think that's an important point to note.
I'd also add that TCC, Tauranga City Council, are quite involved in the projects as well. There are a couple of particular projects around, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, asset management that some of the councils in the Waikato are running that are of particular interest to us as well. So I appreciate the point about the political influence, but this, for us, this is actually about how can we efficiently be ready for our future, regardless of what that future looks like. It's not a Three Waters driven decision. It's a system, process, alignment with other councils, best practice decision that we're trying to make.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Henry.
I appreciate all that you've said about where we're heading, and the transition period is going to be huge. And we're better to work together with other councils and sharing the costs of actually working through that. And hearing what Margaret says, yes, there is an election coming up in 2023, but that is quite a way away, and we'll be behind the 8 ball if we don't continue with this work with what we know now. And so I am for it. I see the benefits of it. Hearing what James says about the cost of it, you just mentioned an opt-out. So an opt-out, if we into it, I mean, Hamilton have put their shares up, and we're taking that opportunity. If it doesn't work for us in the future.
Yep, that's correct. We do have that option. Not wanting to walk you through the whole process to do that, because we'll be here for a while. But just to reiterate, Councillor Denya's point and your point, Councillor Henry, is this isn't an additional cost in terms of what we're going to do about being future ready. Program of work was approved, as everyone may be aware, under the last long-term plan about future ready, which is how the organisation transitions for change, transitions to supporting our community outcomes and our values. This is part of that framework. It's just a different way of doing it and trying to get value with other councils. Just to add to that as well, I forgot to mention it in the report, is Rotorua Lakes Council has already done, is already in this Waikato LASA. This isn't a new precedent for any of the Bay of Plenty councils. They've seen the benefit of sitting there going, we want to do shared services and we want shared procurement benefits. We'll do both. At some point, there needs to be a reassessment between where our membership should sit, but that's probably not today. Does it make sense?
Okay, Councillor Granger.
Happy to move recommendations 1, 2 and 3 then too.
Did you have another, just before I accept that, did you have another question, Councillor Murray-Bench?
Boplas, then Mr. James, are you suggesting that it's on limited time and that this joint new project would be superior?
No, it's no. They have different purposes at this stage. Councillor Bench, very different. Councillor Murray, sorry, they have very different purposes at this stage, and maybe at some point that comes together and there's an assessment to be made, but not at this stage, no.
All right, I think there are no more questions. Move Councillor Granger, seconded Councillor Henry. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? And so that's points 1, 2 and 3. Yep. All right, if we go to the next one, 11.5, recommendatory report from the annual plan and long-term plan committee, adoption of the annual plan 22-23 and fees and charges 2022-23. Got David and Matt back. Well, David back and Matt arrived.
Good morning, councillors. This is just a recommendatory report that follows on from your annual plan minutes that you adopted earlier in this meeting. You've seen the documents before and made the decisions in that previous meeting, but we're happy to answer any questions at this point.
Any questions? Seems not. I'm happy to move the report. Do you want to second it, Councillor Murray-Bench? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, 11.6, setting of rates for the 2022-23 financial year. We have a mover there, Councillor Thwaites, Councillor Dean. Oh, sorry, just hold that a minute. Go for it.
Mr. Chairman, on item 5, there is a it mentions about all these extra fees for that you have to pay if you are applying for a postponement of the rates. Are those fees payable before you actually can do the postponement, or are they part of the postponement?
David, if we could have you answer that, please.
Firstly, just to reiterate, those fees are meant to are envisaged as a just recovery of staff time rather than being punitive. In practice, they are added to the balance owing over time.
Thank you.
So councillor Thwaites moved that. Have a second to councillor Dean. Put the motion, all those, oh, certainly you can.
Quite a momentous occasion. I'd just like to thank staff for all their hard work they've put into this and your chairing of it, sir, through this process. I think it's an outstanding outcome facing the inflationary pressures everyone's facing around the country, from food to fuel to everything, and an average rate increase of 3.92. It's not to be sneezed at. Our residential people who have been long suffering in the Western Bay, the median residential is facing a 2.65%, which is really great. Even the upper quartile at just over 3%. So there's some relief there for them in this period. So I just have endorsed. It certainly highlights the challenges ahead, that we have to make savings, and perhaps that last motion you just passed where we're looking at alternate options of operation, that's all part of this. How, you know, we're facing difficult times. Staff are going to have to, you know, drive hard bargains. So I'm fully endorsing of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Denier, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I agree with that, but also note that the rate increase is below the average nationwide. So that'll start to bring us down that league table of the higher rating council. So in that regard, I'm in favour. So happy to support.
Councillor Murray-Benge.
I think, sir, that this is really quite significant. Our neighbours are on to a 13 point something increase in rates. And we've looking at the issue, or the government is, on reforming of local government. And it's worth noting that smaller councils that are closer to the people and are more effective in their decision making and holding their costs but providing the service, I think Western Bay can hold its head up high, because that's the standard we have. And I agree with Councillor Thwaites. Our staff have served us incredibly well. We've lost a few really good people, but it's just surprising what comes up as well. And with the new people that come, and I just think we've got a great combination of experience and newbies, and we're well served. Thank you.
All right. Seems there are no more. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? I'm deafened by the silence. Motion passed. All right. In this section, we're on to the last one, the recommendatory report from the Makatu Community Board in regard to CCTV cameras. Would you like to comment on this, please, Mr. Ellis?
Mr. Chairman, just to say that this recommendation is consistent with the policy that you've adopted, and the operational costs are picked up by the district-wide funding, again, as per the policy. And probably just a note that while the community board made the resolution for $23,000, they sort of didn't actually have some of the installation costs included. So we need to include that in the resolution.
Thank you. Were you moving, Councillor Denier? Question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did have a question. So the policy talks about funding 2 operational costs for cameras each year from community boards, and this is 3. But I'm guessing, do we not use that at all last year?
This is the first application, right. And so we haven't used the current year's funding, and then this just commits us into next year, which already is covered. So essentially it pulls out one of that funding from next year.
Right, thank you. I thought that, great.
Councillor Gray, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a question. So the Te Puke Community Board approved 2 cameras for the Welcome Bay roundabout, which is in a busier area with a total price of 14,806.38 excluding GST. I'm just querying why 2 just standard cameras are costing a heck of a lot more than that.
So the $23,000 was for the 3 cameras, not the 2. So it's about the same price per camera. It's just the installation cost. So what we said when you did the analysis for the policy and for the funding is that it was always around an average cost, and depending on the circumstances, some can be particularly more expensive or less expensive, depending on where they're located, whether they need additional poles, power supply, etc. So they're all site specific rather than a standard cost.
Sorry, supplementary
Yes.
question. Are these standard CCTV cameras or ANPR?
Probably I can actually answer that. This is just what came through to the board. But we're trying at the moment to put the number plate recognition cameras in where practical, because that also provides a greater level of service across the district.
Just seemed quite a lot more expensive. That's all.
Yeah, but I understand, as Mr. Ellis has said, that there was, at least in one of the cases, there was a special request from the board that it didn't include number plate recognition. So Councillor Marsh, were you wanting to move that motion? Yep. Or you want to speak too? Okay, carry on.
The cameras where they're putting them, one is down at the cut down at Ford Road, I think, and the other one is out on the main road where they're having problems with identifying the cars that are coming into Makatū or with the police. So, you know, it's a cause that's really needed. Can keep an eye on the whole of Makatū, and the people of the district will benefit out of them. So I would move that, yes.
Thank you. I'll second it then, and I'll put the motion if there's no one wishes to speak further. So put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, so that concludes the open part of our meeting. So I need a resolution that we move into confidential. Councillor Murray-Benge,